This is week 1 of the fall trimester of my Atelier diary. How a typical day of my Atelier is set up, the day is really divided into 2. The first part of the day, everyone's in the model room and you're either drawing or painting from the figure. The figure session is 3 hours and everything's done from life and under natural light. The second part of the day is working on individual project. For me, I'm working on cast paintings, and again, this is all done from natural light and from life. And then in the evenings, it really depends on which day of the week it is. We get more time practicing in front of the figure. We just added an anatomy class, which I'm super excited about. And I'm also trying to set up a portrait session with the other students as well. Okay, so for the figure session, we just started a new long pose. So we're gonna be doing this pose for 5 weeks. Now I'm gonna be working on a painting of this, but for the first week, I do a charcoal drawing of it. And so this is gonna be a transfer drawing, and I have it finished now. So, because we usually do the transfer drawing for the first week, but I'm gonna be transferring this drawing onto a canvas so then I can be painting it. And it's a really beautiful pose, and I'm really excited to make this into a painting. Seated poses are tricky though. There's a lot that can change in the pose, kind of different than a standing pose. So if she sits down on her hips a different way, or how she's balancing herself, there's just a lot of movement and changes that can happen. So her legs typically stay pretty consistent, but it's her upper body that moves a lot. So she has all of her weight on her hands and wrists. So at the start of the day, she's leaning back, but probably as she gets tired or sore at the end of the sessions, she's leaning forward more. And there's also a lot that can change with her shoulders, just how she's balancing herself. And the movements is just the challenge of working from life, but it's all completely natural and normal to deal with these types of things because she's a human and not a statue, so it's all to be expected. But then with dealing with movement, especially with seated poses, because I think that the pose can change a lot, you really do have to really be paying attention to the whole figure and treating it as a whole and seeing how big pieces are matching up to big pieces. Because if you get tunnel vision on a small piece, it can kind of get you into trouble because maybe if she moves or changes, you're capturing something different than the overall thing that you already have captured. So you just have to be really conscious when you are working in small areas to make sure that you're still relating it to the big picture. And since her upper body does move a lot, something that I've been doing to help me is I see a triangle in the upper body. So I have her shoulders as 2 points, and then the bottom point is her pubic region. So as you know, her body shifts and moves either forward or back or side to side, I can see how that triangle between the 3 points is moving in perspective. So I can either see when that triangle is matched up perfectly to the triangle that I've captured in my gesture drawing, but then also, because she's not going to be in that position all the time, I can see how the triangle has shifted and compare that to if I were to shift the triangle in my own drawing so that I can make relative judgments to that. And overall, I am pretty happy with my transfer drawing. There are proportional changes that I know I need to make, like her head is leaning forward, but in my drawing, it looks like it's really leaning forward, really far away from her body because the head's too big. So I know I need to make the head smaller. And then also the foot that's closest is way too small. If you look at the foot that's in the shadow, I think that is a good size proportionate to her body, but the light shape of the foot is kind of small, really small, like, yeah, so I'm gonna need to fix that. And I know that I want to change that foot anyway, because really rarely she has her foot pointed to the left, so it really emphasizes the curve of her legs, and then the foot just follows that. But she only does it really rarely, so I know when her foot is in that really angled placement, I'm going to just repaint the foot so I can keep it following that curve, because I think that'll make the gesture really, really beautiful. And then the second part of the day, I'm working on cast paintings. So this cast painting, I had worked on it before summer break, I think for about 5 weeks, which is actually pretty quick for a big cast like this. And I also worked on it just a bit over the summer. I was really trying to finish it up because I want to be done with this cast painting, because after this cast painting, I have one more cast painting in this section of the program, and then I get to move on to still life, which I'm just really excited to move on to still life because it's something new. And also cast paintings look really academic, and it's kind of hard to get away from that academic feel, but I feel like with still life you can definitely be learning or be using it as a learning tool with school, obviously, but then also you can really kind of get your own creative pieces in there, which I'm getting really antsy to be making my own paintings like that and just to kind of get away from this academic feeling. So I thought this cast painting was done, and that's what I was pushing for over the summer. And when Matt came by on Monday, the first day of school, he said it wasn't finished. And he gave me a long critique about it and explained why it's not finished, what's lacking in it, and how I could still really improve this piece. And Magda, when she came by for the next day to give me my critique, she said the same thing. It was a really long conversation about how I can improve it and just make it better, and why I shouldn't count it done right now. And it was just one of those experiences where you think you've done a really good job, you think you're finished, and then someone points out why it's not as great as you think it is. And then you start seeing what they're seeing, and it's honestly pretty crushing. And I don't want to sound negative, because I know if I were to count this painting finished, I wouldn't work on it anymore. I still think it's a good painting. I don't want it to be a good paint. Like, I'm always trying to push to really just be a really great painter and really just be the best that I can be and really push myself towards that. So after the critiques, I had to go into the lounge and kind of mentally prepare myself to keep working on it. But I took their advice and the things that they were saying to improve on it, and just working on a week on it, I feel like I really improved the piece a lot in ways that I didn't think I could. I think I improved the sense of light, the sense of space, and then also I was messing around with temperature shifts to really make sense to improve the space and the light. And when I was working on this before, I'd really intentionally made things pretty hazy and the lines pretty soft. So I think I need to go back in there now and really make really definitive, this is where the shape starts and ends. Sharpen up things intentionally, which I did at the top. I did do a lot of sharpening of like the folds of cloth that go around her chest, and I think I need to do that. Well, and it makes sense up there because that's the focal point, and I need to do it in other areas where it would make sense as well. And really just try and be a slave to nature. Also make sure that the texture, everything looks like plaster, like the plaster cast. A trick that Matt has me do is he takes, or I take my mirror right up to the canvas and I look in the mirror. So you're only looking at a small portion of the reflected painting, and really seeing if it looks like in the mirror, like you could knock on it like it would be plaster, or if your finger would go through it because it looks kind of cottony. I still think a lot of places it looks cottony or just not solid, and I really want to get the solid look all over it because it is a solid object in space. And I've also just been looking at this cast for such a long time. I think my eye has kind of gotten lazy to it, so things are looking more right than what they actually are. So I kind of wanted some other opinions. So I asked my friend Sarah. She's just in the BARG program, so she is still pretty new to the program, but she's like incredible and has like a really, really good eye. So I asked her, and she was saying that there's structure lacking in it, and the forms aren't looking as solid or definitive, like things are kind of like bubbling out. So I was seeing what she was seeing then, because she pointed that out, and definitely going to try and work on the structure, because I think structure in something really sets a painting apart from being a good painting to a really great painting, because the structure, you can get tension in it, and then also just the weight of things. I think it's really important, so I'm really glad that she pointed that out. So with this painting, this has just been a good lesson for me, because I have been comparing this painting to my previous painting, which I always do. I always compare the thing that I'm working on to the thing that I worked on previously, and I always want it to be better than the previous thing that I worked on, which this painting is, and it would have been better if I had just stopped on it. But I'm also, it just so happens with the other students that I'm kind of farthest along in the program, so I can't really look up to anyone else that's like working on like more complicated casts that I'm working on. So I think the danger then of kind of working in a vacuum and then only looking at my previous pieces, I got online and was looking at the really amazing work of other schools like the Angel Academy and the Florence Academy and those really great schools, and looking at their cast paintings compared to mine and being like, whoa, I can see how I can push my paintings to be a better representation of nature. And also not just looking at students' work, but then also looking at really the master painters that are in the art history books. And while having the first day back at school being shown why my painting isn't finished and why it's not good enough is definitely not fun, with just 1 week working on it, I can already feel myself getting better, and that's definitely worth it.